I did actually pay to watch Gods of Egypt, so this review may be subject to confirmation bias. Anyway, it's a film starring Gerard Butler as an 8-foot tall Scottish goddess shagger with gold blood who strides around wearing a chainmail kilt, which, to be honest, is how I always imagined Gerard Butler to be in real life. I'd probably draw the line at referring to him as the god of darkness, although I've never been to Paisley, his hometown, but I can't believe it's that bad. It's set in Egypt, understandably, and it's about a family of gods, and it really is about family. To be honest, it reminded me of a sort of episode of EastEnders, and I was half expecting Jerry to storm off in a black cab halfway through. It starts with there's a big set piece where they're having a coronation where the sort of chief god and king of Egypt, Osiris, who is Set's brother, Set is the god of darkness, is handing over his crown to Horus, the god of air. So they're up on this big stage having a big sort of family get together with thousands of Egyptian mortals watching. And then Set arrives with all those old family resentments spilling out, strides around the stage and has a fight with Horus and pokes out his eyes. Keep an eye out for the eyes during the film because they look very much like those glittery doorknobs that John Lewis used to sell in the 1980s. So there isn't really a huge amount of plot. I mean, Set takes over as king, seizes the throne, and is a very bad king, although he's quite funny and is also extremely handsome. There's a subplot with two mortals who are trying to retrieve Horus's eyes so that he can then reclaim the throne. It's really quite a long, silly romp. There's a few nice set pieces. There is a scene set on what I'm going to describe as a glittery space station, where Ra, who is Set's father and Osiris's father, is sort of living out his days fighting a giant beast that wants to consume the world and the afterlife. And Set goes up there to really sort of talk through all the family issues that he has, and the typical things that children always have about other children being the favoured ones and about them being more tested than their siblings. To the extent that I did start to wonder whether Set was, like me, a middle child. But it's actually, Ra is played by Geoffrey Rush, and it's actually quite a good scene between him and Gerard Butler. I wouldn't call it exactly Shakespearean, but it is nice. The film itself is probably best described as a cross between Cleopatra, Carry On Cleo and Tremors, because yes, there are giant worms. In fact, because it's a fantasy, you can pretty much have anything happening. It is very silly. It ends with a big fight scene and what looks like giant blocks of polystyrene falling over everyone. There was a big whitewashing controversy about the casting because most of the gods are white. Most of them are English. I know God is supposed to be a middle-class Englishman, but still. And it's one of those things where you think, how did all these people get cast and how is it not realised until the end? You know, it's set in Egypt. It may be a fantasy, but it is set in Egypt. It is... some of the acting is quite ropey. I think with films that sometimes you get a sense that the actors know that a film isn't going to be very good and they start hamming it up. And my view is that if you're being paid to play a role, however silly the film is, you need to do that properly because we are paying to see these things. And so some of them do go a bit mad. Gerard Butler does carry on gamely throughout, which he seems to do with a lot of his films, however bad they are. So it's a sort of fun, silly romp. It's never going to win any awards, apart from maybe Best Film called Gods of Egypt, and even then it might be pipped to the post. But a bit of a diversion perhaps for a wet afternoon.